Hello and welcome to the Clock and Talk, an Arsenal podcast, and we're covering, for fuck's sake.
Good job me and Schwinn are a lot more prepared than you, because if we came on and went, oh yeah, we didn't watch the game either, we was on the piss, it'd be a pretty shit podcast.
Well, Mesut Ozil is the best number 10 in the Premier League.
Yeah, that all looks good on paper, but there's never been a football match played on paper, so it's not really worth much.
I'm going to make a bold prediction that Jack Wilshere will sign for West Ham United.
It's time to start watching football with your eyes. I think people listen to what the commentator's saying and have that as their own opinion, but if you watch what's going on, you'll see things a lot clearer.
Schwinn, who do you think is going to win the Golden Boot?
I think Alexis Sanchez might do a number on that this year.
Okay. Tony talks about a clock being right twice a day. Tez is right every day. 5 from 5, lads. Fucking beauty.
Welcome to another edition of the Clock in Talk podcast. I'm Darren, standing in for Tez once again. I'm joined this week, as usual, by our regular Tony. How are you, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Didn't get back from Old Trafford until stupid late last night, so a little bit tired, but nothing I've had a lot worse.
And it was all good news from Tez this week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it seems to be picking up. Obviously, he's got a long road ahead of him. For people that don't know, he seems to have come through all of his operations now. He had a stroke, so he's going to have to pretty much learn to walk again. I think he still has some confusion in his mind, but he's pretty... I mean, he can talk and whatnot. He just gets confused about a few things from what we hear, but he seems to be out of the woods in terms of life-threatening, so... I guess from where we were, that's a positive sign, and he's got a long road ahead of him, but it's all positive.
Absolutely. I mean, I met Tez. I was invited on your podcast, this podcast last season, and Tez contacted me at the end of the season and asked if I wanted to be a semi-regular guest on the show when Schwinn was away. But I've never actually met him, never seen him until, of course, this happens, and lucky enough to have seen his video message earlier in the week. And you get an image of what people look like, don't you, when you haven't seen them, when you just listen to their voice. And he looks exactly like I thought he would.
Yeah.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, I mean, he was always very private, so he never... I think someone told me, I don't know if it's true, he joked once that, you listeners will sort of never really find out who I am or my real name or whatnot. And obviously that's been blown out of the water with all of this. But it was only recently that I think he discovered, or one of his kids discovered, Snapchat. So then he started playing about with it on his phone, and he started sending little videos of him with like bunny filters and stuff. But until then, so despite doing this for 2.5 years nearly, or 2 years, it's probably only 4 or so months ago that I sort of first saw what he looked like.
And for those of you who are thinking about what Schwinn looks like, he's incredibly ugly.
Yeah,
I've met
true.
Schwinn.
He's also very tight and doesn't buy drinks. But I've told all of our listeners that multiple times, so I'm sure they're aware.
Mind you, when he visited me at my apartment when we did a podcast there in India, and he brought a very expensive bottle of wine round, so he must have stolen it.
Yeah, I was going to say, he found it on the street outside.
Anyway, Tez, hope you're listening. Get well soon. Want you to come back on, take this job over from me. And Schwinn couldn't make it this week. He's at school.
Yeah, back to education.
Yeah. So where should we start? I guess similar to how I started last week. We're 8 games in now. That's like a fifth of the way through the season. We're in the top 4. We're above Spurs, Chelsea, Manchester United. We've played 3 of the top 6, 2 of them away. We're unbeaten in the last 6 games. We've scored 20 goals in those this season. Everything's good, eh, Tone?
I wouldn't quite say that. Again, look, I think had at the start of the season you said we're going to be 4th after them games, everyone probably would have took it. But still, the concern, at least for me, and it seems like for most others, is the level of performance and just, again, we still haven't played well. I mean, I've even had United fans, obviously people that live around me know I go to Arsenal games and whatnot, but I've even had United fans come up to me again, just what a load of shit that was. Even in the, I was driving back last night and we stopped to fill up with petrol, and the United fan came up to me, obviously I was wearing an Arsenal shirt, and he went, "They are two of the shittest teams I've ever seen," and I couldn't really disagree. Like as in the shittest Arsenal and United teams. Not obviously we've seen a lot worse, but just you're like, I can't argue with you.
Let me take you back in time a little then. Let me take you back to, was it Tuesday night? I don't want to spend too much time on that. But what a fabulous 5-0 victory. And for those of you who listen to me regularly know that I predict 5-0 for all our games. That's another one I got right. So it was a great evening out, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, as I always say, for them games, I just treat them as a bit of fun. You want to see the sort of the young players coming through, see what they've got. You watch them, and I'm sort of never really too disheartened if we lose. So you can have fun with them, and we did. I'm not sure. I don't think Forest were particularly at full strength. They were also very poor. Obviously, they had a big game on Friday night. So they rested some players, and I think some of the players that were on the pitch weren't fully committed either. But we done what we had to do, and it's given some. Martinelli now probably looks like he's closer to the first team than we all thought. And a few others took their chances. Obviously, I thought Tierney looked excellent. Holding looked fit, which is probably all you can ask at that point. He looked like if they would have needed him to play yesterday, he could have done. So there was loads of positives to take from it. But that's what them games are for, really.
Good to see Hector get back in the red and white of Arsenal as well. Last 15-minute cameo.
Yeah, obviously a brief cameo, but then I think he played 60-odd minutes on Saturday for the under-23s as well. So I'd imagine he'll start on Thursday, to be honest.
Do you think that soon? Do you think he'll get some minutes on Thursday?
I think he'll start on Thursday because he's had a sub appearance for the first team. He's now had 2 starts for the under-23s, and the joy of this is if he starts and then he's not quite fit for Bournemouth, there's a 2-week break, like an international break. So this is probably the perfect time to give him 90. And if he's just feeling, obviously, hopefully he doesn't get injured again, but if he's feeling a little bit stiff and whatnot, he kind of has 2 weeks to like get rid of the cobweb, so to speak. Whereas if he doesn't start for here or Bournemouth, then after that, there's no rest for quite a while.
So you got to see Kieran Tierney in the flesh. Obviously, I only watched the game on the TV. I was on holiday. Looks the real deal. Looks worth every penny.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's difficult to say. As I said, we're playing against a Forest team that didn't really look motivated. But just his style, the way he played, just you can tell it will suit us. He looks so fit. It's so weird because we've got so used to seeing our player get to the byline, cross the ball, and then if it comes back out and we recycle it, our player's still offside seemingly 10 minutes later, or just not back in position. It seemed like he crossed the ball, and then when the ball got cleared, he was already back at left back. His desire just to run non-stop was great. He was beating men rather than, like I always say, Kolasinac, he makes very good runs, but he never actually beats his man. He's more, you find him with a pass, whereas Tierney looked available for both options. His delivery looked very good. I thought it was a really, really impressive. As I said, it was more his style of play than what he actually done, because I know someone's going to come on and say, oh, Chambers got 3 assists, so obviously he was better than Tierney, but just the style of play from Tierney really excited me.
But I think it's worth touching on Callum Chambers. It looks like a player who's really decided to take the chance he's been given. Obviously, was on the fringe of things, loaned out for a full season to Fulham, was the player of the year at Fulham, their supporters player of the year, which I think is always a good judge of... you've got to also say that they got relegated, but he was player of the year there. He's come back. He's had a couple of brief cameo appearances and has looked really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, he's played in a few different positions as well. I think we've already seen him in 3 positions in probably 5 games in terms of actually playing time. So it's difficult. Is he... The issue is going to be with him is is he, and if he is, where is he going to nail down a solid starting place? I think the only option is going to be potentially at centre back, and I can't see it really. And that's not a reflection on how he's performed. I just don't think it's something Emery will do.
I think he's probably 4th choice there, isn't he? So you've got the 2 who are in situ at the moment. And then you've got Rob Holding coming back, and then Callum Chambers maybe. Mavropanos.
Yeah, I mean, I personally think give it sort of 3 weeks and Holding will dislodge one of the two, probably Socrates. And I agree with you that Chambers is 4, but I think Holding will probably step into the top 2 with fitness allowing pretty soon.
I don't know if you can hear that on my microphone. It's chucking it down with rain here, and there's a big thunderstorm overhead. So for the first time, as I said to you before we started, I'm actually sitting undercover this week. I'm not in a car park or anything, and yet the rain's battering down here.
Where are you? Because just as you said that, I've had the biggest roll of thunder, and we had nothing until you said that.
I'm in Stansted. I don't know how far away that is from you.
Milton Keynes.
No, right, okay. So good all round. I guess we should touch on Mesut Ozil. Captain on the night, but withdrawn after 3/4 of the game. Strange decision.
Very weird because again, he's fit, so you'd want to give him minutes. He wasn't playing badly. Look, he didn't. I'm not saying he lit up the show, but he wasn't bad by any sense. Everything went through him, and then dragged him off for sort of what reason? You're looking at it thinking, what reason? Even if he did have him in mind for Old Trafford. It was like, well, that's 6 days away. So it seemed very, very weird. And obviously there's more stuff gone on since then, which I'm sure we're going to get onto later. But yeah, it's just that whole saga's just getting annoying. I mean, some people are probably annoyed of it a long time ago, but for me, it's just getting really, really just mind-numbing now.
Well, I sort of touched on him there as captain. We also had that happen this week at the club. We named our 5 captains. It's come out in the press that we decided the players held a ballot and chose their group leaders. I hear nothing but criticism from Arsenal fans these days, but I didn't think it was the most stupid thing in the world. There's no outstanding candidate. I think it was a good opportunity for the club to sort of back Granit Xhaka in its own way because, the fans are very critical of him at the moment, but the players and the management have chosen him to lead us. So it's a very defiant stance, I thought, from Emery and from the players to show that they're all together in this. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I mean, the 2 issues I have with it are everyone knew Granit was going to be captain the moment Koscielny started sulking, even before Koscielny went, the moment he started throwing his toys out the pram. It was obvious it was going to be Granit, so I don't get why they've waited until basically October. It doesn't seem to make sense. And this captain leadership group, look, I've found out this week that it's very common in Spain and everyone does it. And maybe in some other European countries, I don't know. It just seems weird. But I mean, there's the stuff like technical director. 5 years ago in England, we thought that was a loony idea and now everyone does it. So maybe it's just England being behind, but I don't see the need for it. I don't see the point in it, especially where, as I said, you've got someone like Ozil in it who him and Emery clearly just don't see eye to eye. And it feels like he's putting him there. Like, it kind of devalues the group when you've got someone that either doesn't want to be there, I believe he does, but then the manager definitely doesn't want him there. So it's sort of like you bring up this leadership group, but then you've got a player in there that the manager just clearly doesn't trust. So they're my 2 issues with it, just the delay in time. And I know a lot of people are moaning about Granit as captain, but let's be honest, it was blindingly obvious, especially, I mean, even with people that have, I'm going to say, an agenda against him, you still knew he was going to be captain. And if you didn't, you're just purely watching a different sport.
So let's move on to, I mean, we talked about Ozil. He didn't travel at all to Manchester. Reading between the lines, because I thought, like you, when he was withdrawn after 70 minutes against Nottingham Forest, that lends to the thought that the manager's thinking that he's going to take him to Manchester and he's going to at least play a part, but obviously not.
Yeah, as I said, I thought it was even a bit weird taking him off anyway because, again, it was 6 or 7 days before it. He played minutes. He played about the same amount of time against Watford, so you usually step it up. You go sort of 70, then 90, and there's a week between it. So it was just a weird substitution to take him off anyway. And yeah, obviously not travelling yesterday. I can't see any sense of it. I was looking when the lineups come out. I just got to Manchester. And do you know how many, I might be wrong, this was just off the top of my head and I've not looked at the stats. Do you know how many Premier League goals we had on the bench last night?
No.
1.
Well, yeah, but we've got a few in the team, haven't we?
No, but if you've got to change a game, you have 1 Premier League goal on the bench. And that was Maitland-Niles.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we're missing Lacazette and we had Martinelli. So you know, who else is there? You're playing Pepe, Aubameyang, Saka. It's not like we're going there with a single striker. We're actually playing three attacking players.
Have Ozil on the bench. He brings you goals. He brings you creativity. He brings you, even if you're not going all out for attacking, you're trying to keep the ball. I just think not taking him. And then I've seen since I got home that they questioned Emery on it before the game, and he just kind of went, I picked my team.
Yeah, he was very black and white. I saw that interview just before the game, and he is obviously a problem. He just said no. He actually just said, you didn't bring Ozil. He just sort of went no, and that was the end of the interview. You know,
it just makes it even weirder that he picked him at Watford 2 weeks ago when everyone was, including me, I was surprised he was starting against Watford, and then 2 weeks later. He's had a game that he's played. As I said, he's not set the world light, but he's been okay and he's been good. He's been on a 7 out of 10 against Forest. Maybe you'd expect him to be more than a 7 out of 10, but still, it's not like he's put in a bad performance. And then suddenly he's not even travelling.
Well, maybe that. I mean, I tend to find myself playing devil's advocate here rather than just always giving my opinion. But two things come to mind. If he gets withdrawn after 70 minutes against Forest and then throws his toys out to pray him in the dressing room or on the training field the next day, maybe the manager just thinks, well, fuck you. You know, you're not giving it. There must have been some kind of disagreement there. There's obviously been a row this week.
I mean, we've been saying that now for nearly a year. Every time, it's like, look, there's obviously, for me, it's a long-term problem. It's not something that's just happened this week, because for every time he's been dropped, which has been a lot in the last year, it's been, they've argued about this, they've argued about that. And, like, he's not had 30 arguments with him.
No, it seems like it's one big one. But then the second point I was going to mention is, in all the times when he did play against the so-called top six or other top five teams, whether that be under Wenger or under Emery, he's all. That's when he's. Look, I'm an Ozil fan, so it's difficult for me to say this, but Ozil's continues to disappoint in those big games away from home. We bought a world
only player in the squad that scored and or assisted at Old Trafford. He wasn't in the squad, but he could have been. Yeah.
I mean, we've changed our whole squad. That's a rubbish statistic because we've changed our whole squad.
But there's been players been there as long, or okay, they maybe played once less.
No, but what I'm saying is that in the last 4 years, he has played 30 times against the other big sides.
But, okay, simple question. You've got to bring someone on to try and win the game. To 10 minutes ago, do you turn to Reiss Nelson or Mesut Ozil?
No, you turn to Ceballos. That's the manager's thoughts, isn't it? He prefers Ceballos over Ozil. That's
okay. So he done that sub. Then with 10 minutes to go, we had to make another sub: Reiss Nelson or Mesut Ozil. You're trying to win a game.
Well, he's got Ceballos on, hasn't he? I mean, what do you do?
You're sidestepping the point. The 10 minutes to go, Ceballos is already on the pitch. You need to make a sub. Who do you turn to, Reiss Nelson or Mesut Ozil?
Well, if you're going to play the same formation like we did with Pepe on the right, then Nelson was a like-for-like substitution. Lots more energy.
You're never going to win the game.
No, but after Ceballos
the guy had 0 Premier League goals, 0 Premier League assists, 5 goals in the Bundesliga, all as a sub playing up front. And if that's someone's choice over Ozil, we might as well just pick our team based on passports.
No, but you're picking it on past statistics. What I'm saying is that Ozil doesn't play in this side anymore.
I'm not picking it on past statistics. If I had to pick that team today, tomorrow, next week, 6 months ago, I would pick Ozil over Reiss Nelson to try and win a game every single day of the week, every single minute of every day of the week.
So you would have played Ceballos and Ozil in that side?
I wouldn't have started them. I'm saying with 10 minutes to go, we needed to make a change to win the game. And he brought on Reiss Nelson, who has no conviction, isn't physically ready for the Premier League, has no past performance, doesn't ever look like doing anything. Like, the ball fell to him at the edge of the box. Not one person thought, there's a chance here. He basically played a back pass.
So looking at that selection then yesterday, he plays 4-3-3. He brings back Torreira, which everyone was talking about. He brings in Callum Chambers for Maitland-Niles, which was a tactical decision, not one based on injury or suspension. It looked quite a good, balanced team on paper.
My issue when the lineup came out, I wasn't sure about Chambers, and it ended up working well, so fair play. I was even more worried after 5 minutes or whatever it was when he got booked. My issue was it was the exact same midfield that didn't work against Tottenham because the gap between attack and defence was too big. And I'd argue it wasn't as noticeable yesterday, but the same issue was still kind of there. I think I read today we had 5 shots on target and 2 of them any of us would have saved.
Yeah, I don't think we
Based
had
on that,
it.
but that, I think as history kind of half repeated itself in that the midfield didn't work against Tottenham. And again, the same thing. When Ceballos came on against Tottenham, we looked a lot better. I'm not saying we looked a lot better once he came on yesterday, but suddenly we stepped up 10 yards and scored a goal.
So what are you thinking? It was too defensive. It was
Just none of them players. Like, you end up with Torreira as your highest man, who's not. Look, I know he has assists before someone tweets nonsense, but he's not the one that's going to slide Aubameyang in. He's not got a finisher's instinct when he gets in the box. So having him as the highest of a midfield three, nature tells you're not going to create the chances or have someone on the end of the chances that you should have.
Did you see so much of a gap in this time though? I mean, I think we've had this.
I did. I thought we were better defensively. I thought we looked like we had a better shape. But I thought the gap between the strikers and the midfield was pretty much as wide as you're going to get it.
Well,
Guendouzi tried to make up the ground and he had one chance off a rebound from Saka.
But if you look at the pass, I mean, Saka came back and collected the ball well, as did Pepe. We'll get on to Pepe, I'm sure, in his performance. But I thought we certainly, I mean, and if you look at pass combinations, Kolasinac to Saka was the number one for us. So I thought there was. I mean, I agree with you that there was a huge gap. We've had this all season. There's either been a huge gap between the defence and everyone, or with the attack and everyone. But this time, I thought they got it a bit better. I thought Pepe and Saka got a lot more involved and came back and collected the ball. So
I mean, as you've just highlighted, that it was Kolasinac to Saka, which is a bypassing midfield move. As I said, I don't think they played badly, and I think defensively the shape was probably a lot more what we've been calling for. But that gap just didn't help us in an attacking sense in any way, shape or form.
So any other thoughts on that? What would you have done differently in that selection?
Probably I would have got Willock in there.
In place of?
For me, Torreira, but everyone else will say Xhaka.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're both sort of coming. Xhaka's getting all the shit this at the moment, and we've talked about this week after week after week. People have just decided that Xhaka's shit, and whatever Xhaka does is shit, and it's a bit like I am with Emery. I just got to that stage where I'm just thinking, will you start watching the team, watching the players, and actually make a judgment based on what you see in front of you, rather than just what you've told your mind to believe. I mean, Xhaka had a really good game a week ago in Frankfurt. He then, wasn't the worst player in a terrible performance the week after. And again, last night, I didn't think he was bad. I mean, he didn't
good yesterday, but we get into that stage again, and I've said this on here so many times before, where you can write what certain people are going to say before the game. Like, I'm sorry, people blaming Xhaka for their goal is the most agenda-driven thing I've ever seen. Like, he ducked out the way. Well, the ball deflected a yard in front of him. So if his reactions are that quick to duck, Leno is the worst keeper in the world. Leno had 20
fairness,
yards.
Tony, I agree 100%. I've watched it a lot. When it happened on the television, when you saw it on the television, and the angle they showed for the first 2 or 3 times, it just looks like he's ducking. Yeah.
But as I was saying, if he can react within a yard, then Leno, sack Leno.
Let me finish.
Get rid of him.
It looks like he's ducking. Then they showed.
You've got to have some sort of sense.
Let me finish. And then they showed a final angle after the game, which showed a slight deflection, which took it just over his head, and you can see it changed it all for the last 15 minutes. Me and the 15 people I was with in the pub last night were all aghast that he had ducked until you saw that replay that you're talking about. So I know a lot of people wouldn't have seen that, and it did look the way they showed it. And I think Roy Keane said afterwards, "What's he doing ducking?" And it wasn't until you saw that angle that just takes it over his head. He didn't duck, and you're right. People are just blaming Xhaka for it.
I'm still not even buying that, because he's a yard away. He wouldn't have had, even if he consciously wanted to duck, the ball is a yard away.
I don't think he is.
Have time. You do whatever you do. As I said, if anyone, even before you've seen any form of replays, anyone's blaming him for ducking, sack Leno, because Xhaka had a yard to react and Leno had 20 and didn't move. I'm not blaming Leno at all. For me, it's just a good goal. But if you're going to choose someone to blame for that, Leno is way ahead of the queue in Xhaka, because he had 20 times the distance.
Well, I think Socrates, I think you're being a little one. Xhaka certainly wasn't a yard away. Socrates was a yard away.
No, from after the ball deflected. from between Xhaka and Socrates was no more than 3 yards.
Yeah, okay, so that's 4 in total. So what I'm saying is that
No, I didn't mean from the ball. I meant from the deflection, which is obviously what changed it.
and that's. I mean, it was a strange block, wasn't it, from Socrates? Socrates has sort of made himself smaller as he's dived in to get the ball. He didn't exactly throw himself at it. And I think that was, there was lots of errors, but it was also a goal that was smashed in the top corner. I mean,
yeah, look, I have no blame on anyone, but as I said, it's just for me, people are deciding what they want before the game, and they might as well write their match reports before the game.
So it was. I mean, you were there at the game. It was pretty horrendous weather throughout.
Yeah, it's pissing. I mean, just the whole day. Like, I think I got to Manchester 5:30, 6, and it was just pissing down non-stop.
So it's a bit of a leveler, that, isn't it, when it's those sort of conditions? It was the
pitch didn't really play like, do you know when it rains heavy and the pitch gets really zippy? It didn't really play like that. It wasn't like, sometimes when it's really been raining, you see a ball and if it's bounced, no one's catching it because it's just going to zip off the pitch.
Yeah.
And considering how heavy the rain was, I think it might have been so heavy that the ball kind of held up a little bit, not so it's noticeable. Again, when pitches get really boggy, the ball just stops. I think it was somewhere in between. It wasn't as zippy as I expected, considering the level of rain.
But it just seemed to be that it made it that sort of open game. It wasn't a...
Yeah, it made touches stray, which I think why is there so many booking, because there was loads and it weren't really that type of game, to use a horrible expression. But I think where the touch gets that an extra yard away from you and then you start stretching and everything happens at speed, you sort of can half see why cards come out so often, whether I agree with them or not, which 9 times out of 10 I didn't.
No, it was. But I felt that sort of weather conditions made it a game. There's lots of comment that neither team controlled the football, and it was the worst Manchester United and Arsenal teams that have been about for years. But I think whoever played in those sort of conditions, it just made it difficult. It made it, an end game, didn't it? There wasn't a lot of control. There wasn't a lot of skill on show. It was just it was a Sunday morning game of football, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't the best. It really wasn't.
So we get. I don't think there was a shot in the first 35 minutes from either side. Nothing really happened, and then
Pereira was the first one.
Yeah, and then just before half time, they score. Terrible time, always, isn't it? But just there'd been nothing really in the game. I think they'd had slightly more of the chances, and we'd had slightly more of the better chances. There was a horrendous miss or miscue from Pepe.
We had the double save from De Gea, which came from a mistake. They were 2 of our 5 shots on target.
Yeah, and Pepe had that one that he skied over the bar.
Yeah.
Saka had one that was well saved by the goalkeeper.
That was a double save where Saka and Guendouzi on the follow-up.
So we come out, no changes at half-time. Would you expecting any? No,
I think, as I said, I mean, for me, I would have had it differently from the start, so I wouldn't have been surprised if he made the change then. To be honest, only 2 players came out to warm up, so you knew within 10 seconds of the whistle going that we weren't going to make any changes. The changes were had to come at some point, and I don't know why. I don't know if he felt Ceballos was only worth half hour, or give these players 15 minutes to fix it and try and get back in the game or whatever.
In fairness, after half time we did come out a lot brighter. We looked the more likely to score, I thought, after half time.
Yeah, I felt it was pretty evenish until we scored.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? You could argue either way. Like, some United fan might say they were a tiny bit better. I might say we were a tiny bit better, but there was not. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing really in it either way, I didn't think.
No, and then I've been critical of VAR since its concept, and we needed it.
We shouldn't have needed it.
No.
That is one of the most shambolic decisions I've ever seen.
I mean, I'm against VAR, as you know, from the very start. I just don't think we need it. I'd prefer to argue about bad refereeing decisions in the pub than what we're getting at the moment. And I talked to you last week about, not knowing when to celebrate. This was one of those that, it was a strange...
Well, this is the one most detractors, and look, I'm a bit 50-50 on it, but most detractors of it say, it ruins the moment. I can tell you after yesterday, it doesn't. It definitely doesn't. Because, okay, we only half cheered when the ball went in because we saw the flag. But when the ref pointed to the centre circle, I don't care that it was 30 seconds after. We celebrated it exactly the same.
I was going to
It
say
really
VAR.
doesn't take anything away.
VAR. That was the first time this season in all of the incidents I've seen that it's sort of, for me, what it was brought in for. It should be there to address terrible decisions, and there aren't that many terrible decisions, and we've seen so far this year they're going to support referees and stand by their decisions. Fair enough if that's what they're going to do, but at least yesterday that's what it's for, isn't it? That's exactly what VAR is brought in for. A terrible decision, 2 yards right in front of him, and he misses it. And thankfully, because if you look, the referee is blowing his whistle because he sees the linesman as the ball's going in the net. You know, if
I thought Kevin Friend had a bad game, but I'm gonna give him massive credit for that because he waited to blow the whistle. Had he blown the whistle, VAR doesn't come into play because obviously he played to the whistle.
Yeah,
so
but
he must have had half an idea it was onside.
No, I think you're giving him too much credit. They showed an angle from behind the goal last night where he's not even watching Aubameyang. He's looked over at the linesman. He's put his whistle to his mouth, and as he started to blow it, the ball's gone in. That's what the Man United players were arguing about because he was very close. It was fractions from them not being able to look at it because he was about to blow. He didn't do it because he thought it was the wrong decision. As soon as he saw the linesman, his whistle went to his mouth and he was blowing. We got lucky there, you know. Even the commentators.
Obviously, again, look, I've not seen any replays back, but in the ground, it looked like he held it. Yeah. From what I've seen, and again, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I can only go on from what I've seen. I'm going to give him credit for it, and I thought he had a shambolic game, but for that incident, he quite easy because I think he had time to blow up. Unless he didn't see the flag till late. As I said, I'm only saying things from my point of view.
Freshens it up with 10 minutes to go. Nelson coming on for Pepe. Obviously, there's no Ozil to bring on, and we look for Saka. It was fresh legs. That's all, really, wasn't it, at that time?
Yeah, it was weird because Saka, obviously, I don't know how much time there was in time between the subs. It wasn't too long, but just before Pepe went off, we played a ball to Saka and he looked like he was running on sand. He got nowhere near it. Nothing against him. He had a great performance. I think he was just fucked. And then, so when we saw Willock lining up, we thought Saka was coming off, and he done Pepe first. Oh no, sorry, it's when Nelson was coming on. Sorry, the other way around. And we was all really surprised. And then obviously 5 minutes or whatever it was later, Saka got the hook.
Yeah, Pepe had to go, didn't he?
Oh yeah. There was no. It was just we thought Saka would go first because he literally couldn't move. Like they actually, it was actually in the highlights package. I can't remember what chance they had from it, but as I said, Pepe played the ball to Saka, and Pereira was behind him and ended up beating him by 4 or 5 yards. And Pereira's not slow, but he's not the quickest, not to be beating someone by that distance. And then as I said, I think it was after that attack the sub was made, and we was all really shocked that it was Pepe just at that time. Or if it had been a double sub, I don't think anyone would have said anything. It was just at that time when you've just seen Saka unable to run, essentially.
Yeah, I think there's something we've got to take some patience with Saka, isn't he? He's a young kid. And
there's no blame on him. He was tired, and he was rightfully tired. He ran his nuts off. Yeah, I
thought it was an excellent performance. I mean, let's go on to that. It was a little bit difficult again this week for the 3-2-1s. Let's do that. Every week we rate the players. We say who we think is our best, second and third best player for Arsenal, and we tot those up, and we'll add those up at the end of the season. So who do you give your 3 points to this week?
It would go to Saka, and after 10 minutes I turned and said to one of my mates, I think this occasion's too big for him. Sort of everything he tried didn't work, and he looked a bit like a child, to be honest. And then I can't remember what it was. It was something so innocuous, like won a tackle. He won a 50-50. He put it out for a throw on, but the crowd all went up. Hey, he's won the tackle, and that just seemed to lift him. And then suddenly he was the best player on the pitch for the next hour.
Yeah.
But after 10 minutes, he looked like there was a few of us. I mean, I said it to someone, but you see everyone in the stand was a bit like, as Emery fucked up a bit here, sort of putting him into this occasion. And as I said, it was something so tiny that it was a 50-50 ball or a little tackle, but everyone got behind him. He got pats on the back from his teammates, and then suddenly he started to believe in himself. And then from then, I thought he was, to be honest, our only threat.
Yeah, I can't argue my 3. I've got mine written down here. I've got Saka as well. I thought he's inspirational at the moment. He's trying things. He doesn't have any fear. Most of our creativity is coming from him, let alone the fact that he's having shots. He's obviously set up the goal, and he's slipping people in. You know, he looks a really good talent. And what about your 2 points?
Guendouzi.
Okay, good. That makes it easy for me now. I can scrub off one of mine. I wanted Guendouzi to get some points. He's good again, isn't he?
Yeah, I was actually talking to someone yesterday in the group chat, and I was saying my only worry is that he needs to affect the game more at either one end of the pitch, like be better defensively where he's not at his best, or get more goals and assists. Because I don't think you can afford to have someone who's obviously very good and going to be playing a lot of football that doesn't affect the game at either ends. And this season he's been a lot better in the attacking third. He's obviously got an assist. He's won a penalty against Villa. And yesterday he did try and do that. I said it last season, he never would have been in the box after Saka's shot, and De Gea's made a good save from Guendouzi. But last season he wouldn't have even been there. So I think just for the energy he showed, he kept the ball ticking over most of the time. He made them commit a lot of fouls. I'd love to know how many times he was fouled yesterday. It was bordering on ridiculous. But then he was still trying to get forward and impact the game.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the problem for me, is that Emery thinks, well, Guendouzi is getting forward more now. So he's the link between where we're saying that gap between the midfield and the attackers is. I just think for that particular role, he starts too deep. And he should be starting where he is deep, because that's his strength. But I don't think he's quick enough to start from his deep position and then be the link man as well. Not quick enough. I just don't think it's really possible for anyone. But I thought he had another. He's
changing as a player, though, isn't he? Because the criticism of him last year from a lot of people was that he was running around like a headless chicken, you know. And I think the manager got some complaints for that as well. You know, he doesn't know what he's doing, doesn't know where he's playing. But I think that's where I'm seeing a bit more maturity in his game now. He's becoming more effective at both ends of the pitch. I think he's going to be an incredible talent for us. Keep him fit, keep that fire, keep that spirit in him. He's going to be a very, very good player for us. My 2 points, I'm not going to put it in. Now Guendouzi's got some points. I'm going to give my 2 points to the goalkeeper. I thought Leno, in difficult conditions, made 3 outstanding saves yesterday. There was one right at the start of the game. It was the first shot from Manchester United. And I
thought that was a really good save at the time. I saw it back today, and I'd have been very, very disappointed if it went in.
Well, I think he's going the wrong way. The way he twists his body and puts a real strong hand to stop it. Pushed one over the bar, which was smacked. And I think, taking into consideration the conditions yesterday, good save from the free kick as well. I just thought he made 3 really good saves. And I think you judge goalkeepers on, you sort of half mentioned it there, is if it had gone in, would you have thought the keeper should have got that? There's certain saves that at this level you expect your goalkeepers to make. And I think a couple of those, if they'd have flown in past him, you wouldn't have blamed him. I thought he was the difference yesterday. He kept us in the game.
I think he had a good game, but this is where I differ from you. I think if any of them would have gone in, I would have put them down as a mistake. Like the free kick, it's a very good save, but I absolutely hammered Heaton for getting beat on that side last week from pretty much the same position. And I said that as they were taking the free kick. I said to my mates, for me, I just wanted Leno to stay that side, because if it gets up and down over the wall from there, he ain't going to get there anyway. So it is one of them. It's kind of a good save, but I would personally be fuming if it had gone in. And look, he saved it, which is all you can ask him to do. So he's done his job. And this is not a criticism of him, but I wouldn't put them down as like a wow saves. I'd just put them down as saves you should be making.
And who's your 1 point to?
There's so many. I've seen Aubameyang get a lot of stick. But I don't know what they showed on the TV cameras. He worked these absolute bollocks off yesterday and got the goal. So I'm going to put him just ahead of David Luiz because he got the goal. But I was just surprised when I got back and looked on Twitter and I saw he was not stick. Stick's probably the wrong word, but Aubameyang done nothing and didn't get involved in the game. He ran tirelessly and non-stop. Even at the end of the game, He got to a point where he was so tired, his 2 options were sprint or stand still. He could barely walk, but he was still absolutely harrying them when the ball was anywhere near him. And yeah, I was just really shocked that he was getting a bit of, I said sticks maybe the wrong word, but I don't know what the right word is. So I'm going to give him it, but I thought David Luiz had a very good game as well.
Yeah, well, my 1 point goes to David Luiz. I think in a period where he's made some mistakes, some high-profile mistakes, and there's been a lot of criticism good Arsenal fans I was talking to last night were really questioning the decision to buy him, saying it was a mistake. And I think such early into his Arsenal career, into what is never a very solid defence and not a very solid defensive midfield in front of him, it's not been a great start to his Arsenal career. But I thought yesterday he stood out in that defence. He controlled that defence, and we looked very strong because of it. So my one's going to go to David Luiz this week. Anything else you want to mention on the game?
Look, I kind of touched on earlier that I thought the ref was shambolic. How Jesse Lingard didn't get sent off, I'll never know. I've not really seen anyone mention it. It looked like, again, not seen replays of either, it looked like the most obvious booking very early on Saka, when Saka was breaking, and then he went on to get booked after.
Yeah, that was a nonsense, because they just booked Callum Chambers. And
exactly. We were going mad in the
within
away
2 minutes. It's exactly the same decision. You know, he's got the wrong side. He's pulled back, and it's a booking. I mean, it's not even questionable. It was strange.
Yeah, but the ref had, I don't want to say no control over the game, but I don't know. It just seemed like he got card happy, and he didn't appreciate the situation or the settings of the match with the rain and stuff. And then he started off not wanting to book anyone and letting Lingard get away with that, and then he went card happy for 10 minutes, and then thought, no, there was one time, I don't actually know what happened, I just remembered this. He gave us a free kick, which I didn't think we should have had for a foul on Pepe.
And then changed his mind.
Yeah. What happened?
Don't know. He just changed his mind. Honestly, it was strange. We're saying the same. We're watching the television, and he's just changed his mind. He pointed one way, then he pointed the other.
It was like they all went to line up for our free kick, and then they all walked the other way. And it was like,
it's a nonsense. Yeah. I know you said last week that VAR aren't meant to tell him anything, but someone said something to it, whether it's his fourth official, but no, there was no explanation, didn't make any sense. The referee just changed his mind. Anything else on the game? I guess a more general question to you. We're away at Manchester United. It's our best chance to win there for years. They're in disarray. It was a little bit disappointing when you see Pogba and Rashford named, because we thought they were both going to be missing. And we weren't great again. But are you happy with the point? Disappointed?
It's a bit of both. I'm before the game, I wouldn't have taken a point. My friends actually asked me in the car, would I take a point? And I said no. On the balance of play, I think a point was a fair result. And I've seen some Arsenal fans saying they thought we definitely should have won. Others saying they thought we should have lost. I think either team would have felt hard done by if they lost that game, and rightfully hard done by. But before the game, I probably... I mean, a point would have been a bare minimum, but I wouldn't have. Like, sometimes I'm going to games and I say, like, tell me to turn around now and tell me the game's 1-1 and I'll take it. Like, which obviously when you go into town, and that wasn't one of them. That wasn't one of the games where I thought I'll take a point now. But one of my mates who I went up with said before the game, I'll take a point now. And that was 4 hours before kickoff or whatever. I
mean, reading a lot of stuff today, like I have this morning, BBC reports, etc. They've said that the game was a disaster. On our WhatsApp group, I was reading people saying yesterday how boring it was. It never felt that way to me. I know it wasn't a game of high quality and high drama, and there wasn't a great amount of chances. But I think it was just because it's so important to win at the moment. I was so tense throughout that game that it was kind of exciting. I never felt bored. Am I wrong here?
Well, I always think that games are kind of less boring when you're there anyway, especially games like that where there's so many 50-50 tackles and so many little fouls. Because you get, as I said, the thing that for me picked Saka up was everyone going mad when he won a 50-50 ball. And because you're so involved in them kind of tackles. You'll know what I mean when I say this. Some people might not. That was one of them games where you come out of it and you feel like you've played.
Yeah.
Like you come out knackered, and because you're so involved in everything. So I can appreciate why people watching that might have seen it as boring. And again, the quality wasn't there. It was a poor quality game. But I just think, as being there, they're the kind of games that you can't be bored by, because you're cheering do you know what I mean? It's like every 50-50 ball you're going for it, you're willing them on. Whereas when it's a game where there might be free-flowing attacking football, obviously it's interesting in that sense. But when there's a tackle, you don't really care, because that's not the exciting bit. Whereas when there is no quality in the football, you have to get up for the battle. And to be honest, to be fair to Arsenal, a lot of the times people will say we're not up for the battle. And then when we was yesterday, we're boring. So
Yeah. Well, there you go. There's Arsenal fans for you. Talking of Arsenal fans, why don't we move on and get to the questions? Not so many this week.
I put the question thread up really late because I didn't know when we were recording. Obviously, I didn't get back till like 3 a.m. last night. So.
Yeah, you're excused. And it's good because it just means that we've got less people slagging off Emery this week. These are in no particular order. I've actually been working today myself, so I haven't had a chance to look at these too much. Thanks for sending them in. There's still quite a few. The first one I've got up here is from Sushant. Sushant says, how good a player is Saka for his age? He has attacking menace with defensive smartness. He created the most chances for us last night, plus he made the most tackles. Interesting stat that I saw that this morning, actually. He made the most tackles in the game.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Young was not looking to go forward at all, and I think he got a lot of tackles and little blocks in. He looked very good. His strength surprised me. Like the amount of times we rolled the ball into him and he just like held Young behind him and held the ball up. It was funny though. At one point in the game, I went, he's really surprised me how strong he is. He's really good at that. And the next 2 times he done it, he lost the ball in quite bad positions. But yeah, his strength really surprised me. He just looked ready. He looked like apart from the first 10 minutes, he looked like he belonged there. Like you didn't watch that game and think, he's a kid that's trying to prove his point. Which is, again, my issue with Nelson when he came on. And I'm not trying to make this a negative Nelson thing, but he looked like he didn't belong there. Whereas Saka looked like he'd been playing that sort of fixture every week.
Yeah, he really has. Just from the first time I saw him this year, he just looks a natural player there, doesn't he? I mean, obviously he's young. There's a follow-up question here from Mahmood, which sort of typifies a lot of people for me. Saka deserves to keep his position and he should start more games, and we shouldn't care if he's only 18. He's good enough to play regularly. And then he goes on to say, what we should do, though, is support him when he's not doing well, because a dip in his form will eventually happen. I mean, actually, Mahmood, I agree 100% with that. But that's
always the issue of Arsenal fans. It's not when you're doing well. It's easy to support someone. The problem with Arsenal fans, and I'm probably guilty of this, so it's not me being holier than thou, but when he's having a bad run of games, still get behind him. Like, shit, why is he playing? Drop him. But I also agree with the first part of the question that at the moment he's undroppable. Like, I'm looking ahead to, I don't think he'll play in the Cup on Thursday, but I'm looking ahead to Bournemouth, and if I don't see his name on the team sheet, I'll be, I don't know if disappointed, I'll definitely be shocked, but I'd be angry if he's not in the team.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it was the same with Willock. Willock played really well in the first 3 games this season and then has just been dropped. And I just hope that doesn't happen with Saka, because I think, I even gave him points in the last game when he was taken off at half time, and we've both given him 3 points this time. He was our best player. I absolutely agree. He's got to be first name on the team sheet on Sunday.
I mean, I don't know about first, but he's definitely got to be on it.
Well, do you say that, you have a look, go through. All right, maybe the goalkeeper. But is Xhaka your first name on the team sheet?
No,
maybe
I mean, if you said to me I can have one of Aubameyang and Saka, no disrespect to Saka, I know what one I'm picking.
All right, I was starting from left to right. He's the first name on the team sheet because I'm left-handed. And that's it. Arsenal fans, we know you won't support him. That's the thing. I mean, it's look what's happening with Xhaka. Looks what's happening with Pepe is a better example now. Is that the fans have starting to turn. I was reading stuff last night in a group. He's not as good as, and there was listing players who have been shit in the past. I really, well, we'll get on to Pepe. I'm sure there's questions on Pepe. Here's another one, again, in no particular order these. This is also from Sushant. How much improvement should we expect when Kieran Tierney and Hector Bellerin return to the team?
I don't know. Tierney's delivery is better than Kolasinac's. He seems to get better up and down more, and then Hector gets in behind more. But we've made quite good use of Chambers' height at the back post, which surprised me. So you kind of, Hector will definitely have a better attacking output. There's no doubt about that. But then we become shorter. So do we then struggle from crosses more? At the moment, I feel like if a cross goes to the back post, we're safe, because you're not going to get many wingers that are going to beat Chambers in the air in general, unless he's out of position, which, as he's more of a natural defender, his positioning tends to be quite good.
What was Tierney like in the air? Did you see much of that? Is he quite tall, or is he?
He's not tall. I mean, I know it's a stupid stat, but he broke the Arsenal jumping record on his medical, and he'd been injured for 3 months or whatever it was. I think he's only 5'9", 5'10". I've not checked, but he's not the tallest, but he's got a spring on him.
Okay, so that will help us there. I mean, I can see this is one of the things that we keep returning to with Xhaka and why the manager plays him. I mean, one of the reasons is he's quite tall compared to the rest of them, isn't he? Let's move on. Cosmic Buta. I don't know what's worse, Emery's tactics or the non-stop moaning of the fans. Well, honestly. I mean, it's a strange question, and the more I read it, it's sort of, what do you call it, an oxymoron. I mean, it's Emery's tactics.
Self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it?
It's or the non-stop moaning of the fan. One brings on the other. One, I don't know. Do you want to take that one?
Yeah, look, as I said, I always think fans have a right to moan. I think my problem comes where you know what certain people are going to say before the game, or you know what certain arguments are going to be made. I've not really heard many people give Xhaka any credit for yesterday when I feel he played. No, I'm not saying he was one of the best players in the pitch, and I didn't put him in my top 3, but he was certainly better than some other players. He was nowhere near bad. You could never call that performance bad. And again, coming out the ground last night, there's some people going, "Oh, Xhaka's fucking shit," and then other people, and there was arguments between Arsenal fans. Someone was going, "Hang on, he didn't do anything wrong," and they was like, "No, he was just good for him. He was just better than he has been in the last few weeks." Like, again, I don't think Xhaka should be in our 11. I feel like I come on here every week and defend him, but I wouldn't pick him. I'm just rational enough to say when I think he's had a good game and when he's had a bad game. I don't form an opinion and just have to stick to that. And look, I'm happy to be wrong, and I think that's the problem with so many people is they're not. So they'll say he's shit, and when he has a good game, they'll just find an excuse, like ducking under a non-existent ball, to say why he's shit.
Yeah,
or not only him, it's the same with Emery. Look, I wouldn't have started that midfield yesterday, and it was probably a slight mistake. But people are going on like, "Oh, playing 3 DMs, blah, 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 blah." And then if we played and we were more open and we lost 2-0 because they kept hitting us in empty spaces, it would have been, "Oh, he doesn't know how to defend, blah, blah, blah."
Yeah, I thought we looked fairly solid yesterday. I mean, we were playing a Manchester United side that aren't very good. But, I thought we looked fairly solid. I like Guendouzi gets up and down the pitch. I like Torreira gets up and down the pitch. I thought Xhaka had one of his better games of the season, and I thought we played well a week ago in Frankfurt. I think lots of good stuff came forward from him this week. I think, forward passes into the final third. He was leading statistics for Arsenal. I just think people are black and white. They've made their minds up and they're not willing to change it. I mean, there's a follow-up here from Sushan. A lot of fans will blame Xhaka for the first goal, but should Kolasinac not be held culpable for it? I mean, it was, there was lots of little bits of blame there. I don't know where Kolasinac was. Was that?
No, I have not seen a replay of it, and I remember thinking, I didn't know it was him. So I think the ball got half cleared from a corner, and someone, again, it must have been him because I've seen this complaint, waited an absolute age for it to come down, and it got nicked from, like, before they could have won it easy, and they waited for it to come down, and someone nicked it in front of them, and that's where the counter-attack started. He should have had loads of time to do it. But again, I've not seen the replay because the highlights package I watched literally showed it from pretty much the moment the cross went into Rashford.
Agreed, and I only watched it last night live and I was drinking. Another one from Cosmic Buta. How can Emery help Pepe integrate? Because I'm sure he's in a new league and all that, but I think we are in need of more and can't have the luxury just to wait for when he's naturally ready and perfectly fitted to the team.
For me, the issue is not the players around him. Like, he gets the ball on the right. Chambers can't really overlap all the time. He'll get there once or twice, but in general, there's no option on the outside. He looks inside. Aubameyang's in the area as the only player in there, so there's 2 defenders around him. You look on the edge of the box and you may have Torreira there, maybe not, but he's not really someone that's going to find space and make a good run for you. So then he just ends up putting the ball into the back post, and then you've only really got Saka maybe running in there, who's 5'7" probably.
He's obviously down on confidence, isn't he? Because in the first 2 or 3 games, he was really trying things. When he was in that position with nothing on, he would take players on. Now he's lost his confidence to do that, and he's trying to just pass the ball now, isn't he? And he's become very ineffective.
Yeah, I think that comes with options, because if you've got more options on, then there's a bit more space to try things. I think everyone first thinks to the Burnley game, and he came on at half time, but we had Lacazette and Aubameyang both on the pitch, and Ceballos. So then suddenly, and Ainsley's bit better at overlapping than Chambers is. So his options there from last night, where you say, well, he had Aubameyang, who he couldn't really give the ball to, and maybe Saka at the back post, who he couldn't really give the ball to. You're looking at his debut, and he had Lacazette in the middle, Aubameyang there, Ceballos on the edge, Ainsley overlapping, and suddenly you've got 5 viable options, whereas yesterday he didn't really have any.
No.
And then he still made the wrong choice. I'm not defending him, but I think the way to get the best out of him is give him them options, so then when he does try the stuff that's different, it's not obvious that he's going to try it, because he does have other options. Yesterday, when he was trying it, it was sort of like, well, you know he's going to do that because he has nothing else on.
Yeah. MAA Gunner also says, what do you put Pepe's ineffectiveness down to? One thing I'd like to say to Cosmic Booter and other Arsenal fans, that 8 games into his Arsenal career are already starting to write him off and to criticise. I was lucky enough to watch Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp's first seasons week in, week out. And I would say that both of them, for the first 3-4 months, and I'm talking about Thierry Henry, do you remember him, and Dennis Bergkamp, who we all hold in such high esteem, they were really ordinary for the first 2-3 months. They really were.
I think that's being nice. Henry was absolute dog shit, and then I think it was in like December, we beat Derby 2-1 at home, and he got both. And then I think he might have even won the Golden Boot that year, but for the first 3 months, he looked like, what have we signed? And then he got 2 goals and didn't stop.
Yeah, so I'm not saying that Pepe, this is going to happen with Pepe, but he looks that sort of player. He's a player that's going to play well on confidence. And Thierry Henry, when he was a confident man, which was for the most part of his Arsenal career, was unstoppable and probably the best player I've seen wear our shirt. So let's it does take time. The manager's carried on playing him. That should give him confidence. And I think what Tony says is absolutely right. That I think when you've got a Bellerin or someone giving an option or taking players away down one side, creating more space, I think it will be better. But it is worrying, because he was our worst player. If we had to give a -3, then it would have been him yesterday. I would have said.
But I said this last week against Villa, that I'd never been worried about him, even in the first, obviously Liverpool and Burnley looked good, so you wouldn't be worried about them. And then Tottenham, I didn't think he was fantastic, and then whoever it was after that, Watford. But I was never worried. He still looked confident. He was still trying things. And then the first half against Villa, I remember a few times, and I said this last week, he had Neil Taylor 1-on-1 and didn't even try and go at him, and I thought, now this is a worry. And then he scored, and then after that he was going at him again the whole game, and I was like, okay, yeah, that's it, he's got his goal. Yesterday again, he just didn't even try, especially he was playing against Tanzebi, who's probably their 4th choice right back, who's been shoved in at left back, and I don't think he ran at him once.
No.
And for me, that's the worry. I don't overly care about the goals or the overhit passes, but if you're taking away his confidence to go and run at people, for me, that's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's early in his Arsenal season. I'm
not writing him off.
Yeah. I keep saying that we're going to bash someone, we're going to tank someone soon, and we'll get 3 or 4. He'll have that game soon, I'm sure. Where once, can you remember us being 2-0 up in a game? I can't remember it happening. Certainly this season.
No, I think our goal difference is +1 after 8 games or whatever it is. It's crazy.
I just think when we get to a stage where we're 2-0 up in a game and we actually get the 3rd, we will run up a cricket score against someone, because...
Well, that was the thing with Saka's miss yesterday. I'm not blaming him if it was a good block, but I feel like if that went in, because they were on the ropes, they were defending horribly after we scored. Yeah. And then Saka missed that chance. And I honestly believe if that went in, we win that game 4-1.
Yeah, agreed. Right, who else? Another question. This is also Cosmic Booter. I say not in any order. Players and Emery want to win, I'm sure. Saying otherwise is absolutely mental. But, for fuck's sake, it does not look like it at all. Or it does, but for very short spells. Why is Emery so reluctant to play more aggressively? Because playing like this hasn't helped us keep clean sheets.
I think from yesterday, although in general I agree with what a lot of he said, I think the aggressiveness in terms of, or the want to win, the will to win was there yesterday. I think the quality wasn't there, and the attacking instinct, which is I assume what he means by aggressiveness.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of take the opposite view in that, Cosmic Booter. I think that's the one thing we seem to have at the moment. 2-1 down, 10 men against Villa last week and against United yesterday. It was an aggressive performance. It was played with a lot of heart, and that's why I'm not waking up disappointed this morning. I had a fairly decent bet on Arsenal to win yesterday because we were 2-1 away from home. I thought we were going to beat them. I wouldn't have taken a point going into the game, but I've come away from that because our players gave everything. As you say, like people like Saka couldn't walk, Aubameyang couldn't walk. They were so tired. We were relentless and we worked and worked and worked. The quality was missing, which is the worrying side. But
that's what I think. I think by aggressive he means, because I know English isn't his first language as well. I think he means as in, why don't we go and attack more?
Yeah.
I don't think he means as in, why ain't we got the bollocks for it?
Yeah, maybe. Vishad, what happens when Aubameyang has a drought? Oh, we're so miserable. What happens?
Well, I mean, I know you disagree with this. For me, it is still a worry.
What happens when Aubameyang has a drought and doesn't score the goals to paper over our enormous crack? Do you think Emery is capable of figuring out our midfield conundrum, or what team formation is best suited for the players on hand and the opposition we come up against?
The second part of the question leads to probably one of my biggest concerns, is that we play to nullify everyone else rather than... Look, there is a time for that, and the criticism of Wenger was always we played our own game. But now it seems like even no matter who we play, we kind of play a game to stop them. And so you end up going fucking life and death with teams like Watford and Burnley, when we should have enough to play our own way, if we had a way, and go and win that game. And I think that's a huge concern. And with the Aubameyang thing, I know you don't agree, and you would say because we do have him, but I think a drought is inevitable at some point. I mean, he's running at a goal a game. No one's ever done that. Obviously, he's not scored in one, but got a brace in another. And that will slow down. I mean, I know he was the top scorer in the league last season, but it was with 22. So it already tells you he's a third of the way there. And as you said, we're a fifth of the way into the season. So just nature tells you he's going to slow down.
Yeah, but we're also missing Lacazette. We have got goals in this side. I don't see, Oba has a drought. I don't think he'll ever have a drought. He might go 1 or 2 games without scoring. He's not going to do a Giroud and go 19 games without a goal.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact remains at the moment that if he'd have had gone 2 games without scoring, obviously Liverpool didn't score, so you can take that away. Any other games we drop points because we've only won by 1 goal or we've drawn.
It's a big if.
So that's where it comes in. He has 1 game without scoring. Like yesterday doesn't score, it's only 1 point difference. But one of the wins, Burnley got the winner. Obviously Villa got the winner. That's 4 points off straight away. And the way the table is at the moment, we can sit here and say we're 4th. But had he had one of them games already, we'd be 12th or something.
Yeah, but he didn't.
No, but they're going to come, and that's what he's saying. We need to fix it. It's not looking at the past. It's looking at we need to rectify that in future, because we can't just keep relying on him. And the thing is, it's also that he's basically running at 1 chance, 1 goal. Off the top of my head, I don't think he's missed a chance this season. Like, obviously, he's had shots that have been saved, but he's not missed something where you go, wow, that's a chance.
Yes, he has. We talked about it on this podcast. He's missed a couple of tap-ins. He missed one at the far post last week.
Against who?
He does miss chances. I actually don't think he's the best finisher in the world.
In general, he's not. This is what I'm saying. The worry is that in the league, I don't think he's missed chances. I know the one at the back post of Europa League. I'm talking about the league. I don't think he's the best finisher. I agree with you, and that's the worry, that he's basically running at 1 chance, 1 goal, and he's not that type of player. He's not what Robbie Fowler was seen as 15 years ago now, where it was chance goal, but he would only get 1 or 2 chances a game. Aubameyang's not that type of player. But that's what he has been so far, and for me, that's the worry. Because it goes back to what we normally expect from him. It's going to be 2 or 3 chances to 1 goal, and then suddenly, where we're only creating 1 or 2 chances a game, it's a real issue.
Vishad goes on. 2 managers, and yet our away record is still abysmal against the top 6. We had a massive clear out, yet we still lack that killer mentality away from home. What do you believe could be the reason for that? Do our players not want it more than their opposition?
Again, I don't want to question their will after yesterday, because I've been to a lot of games where I felt that the Arsenal players haven't given it everything, and yesterday they did. So I don't think it comes down to want. I don't know. And if anyone knew the answer to that, then it would probably have been stopped and we would have won more away games.
And I think we will this year. I mean, it's not going to be hard to beat the record from last season, is it? We were abysmal, and it seemed like there was a real, they talk so much about our lack of mentality last year, but we've lost a lot of players. There's a lot of changes in this side. I'm not saying that they're all leaders now. I'm not saying everything is fixed, because it certainly isn't. But it does seem like there's a good team spirit in there, and I think Louise adds to this. And I think Socrates is a natural leader, and I think the introduction of Tierney and Bellerin and Guendouzi, there's going to be Saka, Nelson, Torreira. When you think of these players, they're players that you actually think have got a bit of fight in them. So I think it's going to be better this year. I know I'm the optimist. I know I'm the internal optimist. But the one thing that we're not doing this year is we're not rolling over and getting our bellies tickled like we did last year. It feels like even when we've gone behind in games, which has happened quite a lot, we haven't given up. The heads haven't dropped. I think that's our teams in the past 2 or 3 years have been beaten 5, 6s. I don't see that in this team.
Yeah, I also just want to add that people go on us about us not winning away at the top 6, but very few of the top 6 win away against the other top 6. I mean, you look at us last season. Of the 5 games we lost to City, which was the first game of the season. I mean, you can expect to lose to City at any time, but so that's 4 of the teams that haven't beat us. It's not that. Okay, look, it's not great that we're not winning away at the other top 6 teams, but it's not like it happens all the time and we're some huge anomaly.
Yeah, I think Spurs' record is as bad as ours, isn't it? I think
exactly, and United's isn't fantastic. Chelsea's isn't brilliant. I mean, we pissed both of them in the league last year.
Yeah.
Pissed Tottenham as well. So then we've got a draw against Liverpool and lost against City. So that shows that 4 of them teams haven't won away against the other top 6.
Yeah.
Liverpool drew at United. Do you know what I mean? Chelsea got absolutely dicked at Tottenham.
You got to remember, this season, Chelsea got beat 4-0 at Manchester United.
That's what I mean. Look, our record away at the other big 6 isn't great, but it's not like teams go and win there every week. So I think, although the record isn't great and should be better, I think it sort of brought up a bit harshly at times, because it's not something that happens every week. It's like saying, I played the lottery 700 weeks in a row and not won, that I'm shit. It's a fucking lottery. It's the clues in the name.
Right, another one. This is from Sam Nickel. Disappointed with the performance overall, but there were positives, one of which was Chambers' mature display. Do you think he could be a viable right-back alternative in some games, even when Bellerin is fit? Absolutely.
I don't, because it's a completely different style, and Maitland-Niles is a bit closer to Bellerin in style. So I think once Bellerin... I'm not saying it's on level of performance. I'm just saying it stylistically. That once we get used to the pace and overlapping of Bellerin and cutting the ball back, it'll be very difficult to then change the next week to someone who you can hang the ball up to at the back post, passes quite well but isn't going to bomb forward too much, crossing isn't really up to much. I think Maitland-Niles will still be ahead of him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I think Chambers has almost, especially, I mean, I know it was against Nottingham Forest, but those 3 assists that we talked about, both right-footed.
I mean, 2 of them were from left-back.
Right, I was going to say right-footed and left-footed, to put in better balls than I've seen from a lot of players. But I just think...
To be fair, the first ball was a great assist. The second one was a cutback when he was at left back, and the third one, they're the assist that everyone that listens will know this. I don't personally count them.
But I'm also talking about...
He beat 3 players and whipped it in the top corner.
But yesterday, Chambers put one on a plate for Saka, who put it over the bar. I just looked at him then and thought, do you know what? He's come forward. He's got he's not got the skill of Ainsley Maitland-Niles, but he's got into that room. He's looked up and he's put one on a plate. And I thought, that's something that we don't do very often. And I think when you look at our goal difference +1, and I've said that we've scored 20 goals this season, it shows that our problem has been at the back. And I think this is one of our issues. We're playing at least he's by nature a defender, and I think that he will play now. In a lot of, I think we might even see Chambers playing now in all of when Bellerin's fit, this is playing in the Europa League, playing in the Carling Cup, maybe playing in the FA Cup, and I think we might see Ainsley Maitland-Niles get in those Carling Cup games in midfield if we progress.
I don't. I think Chambers, as you said, for you, he's 4th choice centre. For both of us, he's 4th choice centre back, which for me makes him 2nd tier games, Europa League, Carling Cup, early rounds, FA Cup, in at centre back with Maitland-Niles at right back. And again, it's going to cause the same problem that if Maitland-Niles is playing all them games at right back and then Hector's out, are you going to switch at someone who's been playing centre back? For me, that doesn't sound logical, and I wouldn't do it. So as I said, for me, that also adds to the reason, not just stylistically, that if Chambers is going to be playing because then if you play Chambers at right back in them 2nd tier games, then you're going to have to play one of the first teamers at centre back. So whoever you deem so say you've got Holding, Louise, and Socrates as 1, 2, and 3, whatever order. If you're playing Chambers right back, that means the number 3 comes in, but then you still have to play number 1 or 2, which I don't think he'll do. You won't want to go to fucking Liège away and bring in and take a starter with him, or whoever the Portuguese team are, I forgot their name. So for me, I think because Maitland-Niles is just going to be playing there, I think he will be the second choice right back.
This one from MAA Gunner. Didn't Tony say that Spurs would win the League Cup?
I don't remember that, but probably. It's funny though, because this shows the way of the world, because I tipped Aguero to win the Golden Boot and he's top. I said Sterling would be Player of the Year, and I think if you had a vote now, he'd be well up there. I said Wolves would be the shock in terms of they'll do much worse, considering people were saying they're going to break the top 6, and then you got out of the relegation zone the other day. No questions about any of them 3 things, funnily. But the one thing I may have got wrong, I need to get them up. I think I did say that. The one thing I've got wrong, suddenly there's questions about it. It's funny that Arsenal fans picking out the negatives. Who would have thought it?
Yeah. What's the next? A few left. This is from Gunner J. Not a bad result, but it was difficult to watch, and it doesn't seem to get better each week. We're left with finding positives from individual performances. He goes on to say, with the amount of talent and technical ability in our midfield, why can't we consistently string some passes together and try to dictate the game? I mean, that's the problem, isn't it, Tony? I mean, I think that's what we're all struggling with, is because, I mean, I quite liked our midfield yesterday. Xhaka, Torreira, Guendouzi is probably my choice, I think, for that game away from home at a big club. But we're still not controlling football games, are we?
No, and as I said, I honestly believe that part of that is the issue of the gap between the attack and the midfield, or, as you said, when it goes the other way, the gap between the defence and the midfield. I think I wouldn't pick them 3 because I think we need a link, and I don't think any of them are capable of doing it.
I think certainly, I sort of thought in that, I like the midfield, but we're playing 3 up front. I would rather have sacrificed one of those 3 and had a Ceballos or an Ozil.
Yeah, I think the issue then is it shoves Pepe through the middle. Saying at the moment that wouldn't look terrible because he's isolated on the right, but through the middle he doesn't really like playing there. He's not natural there. He ends up drifting out to the right anyway, and then it leaves us very lopsided because it ends up with a 10 with Pepe on the right and no one on the left. That was my worry. That's what I actually thought he was going to play driving up there. Like my prediction was that's what he was going to play. See, it kind of solves one issue of the link between the midfield and the attack, and then kills you on another issue because you only get width on one side and you lose a lot of balance.
Sure.
So
Gallagher continues on that. He says, what's the logic behind playing Torreira so high up? To trigger the press, he asks. We had the best player for the job and then we let him leave for free. Watching Aubameyang cross for Torreira in the box was odd.
Yeah, I mean, that is the reason. He said that. The reason is that you get your presser to nick the ball high up and then you've got the ball 30 yards from goal. The issue is we don't press as a team. No. So there's no point having someone to trigger the press. And I completely agree on the Ramsey stuff as well. And whether some people will say Ramsey didn't want to sign and whatnot. The fact is he didn't use him for 4 months. When if that's what he wanted to do, someone high up to trigger the press, that was Ramsey. So forget the contract situation. There was 4 months of the season where he just didn't want to use Ramsey.
Yeah.
So has he changed his mind about how he wants to play, or I don't know what it is.
There's one here from Rodrigo. Would you take Ten Hag at the end of the season? You'll have to answer that. I've got no idea who he is.
Ajax manager.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's be honest. I'll take most people now, so it's not a shock from me. I'll take Ten Hag. I know Liam, who does a lot of our player ratings and a lot of our articles, or a few people alternate, but Liam does quite a lot on the Clock End Talk blog. He lives in Holland. He's English, but he moved to Holland a few years ago, or I don't know when. Sorry, Liam. But he loves Ten Hag. He goes on about him non-stop. Okay. I would take it, as I said, but for me, that's not a high bar. I'm the opposite to how the refs are using VAR. My bar is like doing a triple jump with a bar on the floor, to be honest. Right. I mean a high jump, not a triple jump.
I was going to say. I was arguing with Liam yesterday, I think. I can't remember what it was about now. I know it was Emery out because... that's right, because Tierney didn't travel with the team. He thought Emery should be sacked. I didn't get that.
Not so, okay. That's drastic. It was a weird one that he didn't travel. Obviously, we don't know.
Well, I've heard this morning someone said he's picked up an injury, but it just then
Arsenal have denied that,
Yeah.
And then said the last I read was they asked Scotland to not play him because they've put in a programme that they want him to work to.
Yeah, but
And
do you know what I'm saying?
he'll
Whether
be
he's
involved
injured,
on Thursday.
but whether he's injured or not, that just makes sense to me. Is him, Bellerin, Holding are on a staggered plan to get back. We've made these mistakes in the past, playing players too early after fitness, and you lose them for another season. So that was where that went yesterday. Emery out. That was the conversation. Tierney not travelling, Emery out, and I took it.
Yeah, I mean, I always say when it comes down to fitness, the manager. Look, there's some I may think I know tactically better than Emery, and obviously Emery and most other people would disagree. But on fitness, I can't pretend because he sees him every day. He's got his medical experts telling him. I can only judge it on what I've seen, and the same for all of us.
Yeah.
So I always think it's quite difficult to argue with a manager in terms of fitness. As I said, tactical. Feel free.
I think that's exactly what I said on the group. I want to trust the people who see him every day, who know what's best for the player. Who we got left? There's a couple more questions. Another one from Vishad. Do we need a Thomas Partey or a Wilfred Ndidi in midfield for Emery to be confident enough to start playing a decent brand of football? Is he overcompensating or overthinking his tactics because he doesn't have the players he wants to play as he desires?
No, I mean, for me, that excuse was being, I didn't believe it to be true. That excuse was being used a lot, and I think it can be even less so now. But I think if he had one of them players, he wouldn't use them because he doesn't want to use Torreira at the base because he doesn't trust him with the ball. And neither of them, Partey probably a bit better, but neither of them are brilliant with the ball. And I think that's the issue. He kind of wants the perfect defensive midfielder who he wants Makelele with Scholes' passing range. I'm sorry, but that player doesn't exist. And he's kind of chose Xhaka, who can half fit in both roles. He's a bit of a physical presence, although he's not a great defensive player, and he can pass the ball. Look, ideally, yeah, he would want, as I said, Kante with the vision of Xavi Alonso, but that player doesn't exist and will never exist.
So, final question. This is from Simply Ceballos. My question is, do Arsenal fans really think that another manager wouldn't get more from our current squad? Do you think from performances, regardless if we finish in the top four or not, warrant Emery a new deal? It's our best squad in 10 years, but B-list management, in my opinion.
I mean, this is aimed at you because everyone knows my answer.
Well, I go back. Ask me again at Christmas. There's nobody setting the world alight at the moment. Liverpool and Manchester City are miles ahead of everyone. We're in the second year of a project. We're fourth in the league. We're unbeaten in 6. We've scored 20 times this season, and we've still got 2 or 3 players coming back in from injury who I think will improve our side. So back to the guy who asked, Rodrigo, who asked, would I take Ten Hag at the end of the season? I'm an Arsenal fan, so I hope at the end of this season we are well in the top 4 and get a trophy alongside it, and with a couple of additions next year, Saliba coming in, another year and under the belt of people like Saka and Tierney. If Bellerin stays fit, then I think it's a side that's starting to shape up that we can take it one step further and start to challenge for the things that we as Arsenal fans want to be challenging. But ask me again at Christmas. Don't ask me now, 8 games in, when everything's fucking rosy. Anything else you want to bring up, Tony? Anything else on your mind?
No, nothing else comes to mind. Obviously, we've got Liège on Thursday. I expect a lot of changes. I think we'll see quite a similar team to what we saw in the Carling Cup last week. Again, I don't think Saka will play. Chambers will be an interesting one. I'm not sure what they'll do with him because I think Bellerin, Holding and Tierney will all start. I don't know who takes that other role at the back. I don't know if it will be Chambers because I think Chambers will play at right back on Sunday. It'll be interesting to see if Ozil plays. It'll be very interesting.
Well, don't you think if Bellerin gets an hour, let's say, against Liège, then he possibly will start on Sunday?
No, for the same reason that Tierney got over an hour last week and didn't start on yesterday. Didn't travel.
Yeah.
I think exactly the same. It's pretty much exactly the same circumstance.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm intrigued to see who will play because, as I said, I do expect Hector, Tierney and Rob Holding to start, and I expect Chambers to start at right back on Sunday. But I mean, saying it, someone said yesterday he played like 4 games in 10 days, and I think he's played pretty much all of them 4 games. Oh no, he came on at half time in the Villa game, but then he played Frankfurt, the Carabao Cup, and then yesterday he played 90 minutes in all of them. Is he just supremely fit and we don't know it? So then can he do Thursday, Sunday, and do a large chunk of Thursday and then play again Sunday?
Yeah,
I don't know. Or does does Mustafi come in? There's another one.
Do you know, that's something we haven't mentioned. He's we're going back to. I mean, Mustafi for me. I love Mustafi. I loved him for 87 minutes every week. You know, he really puts everything in. He fights. He works hard. He's got a goal in him. He's just got a mistake, and we just as Arsenal fans just got fed up, didn't we? We just got fed up with him. We got fed up with those high-profile errors, and it was interesting during the summer when obviously he's on a fairly decent wage and. We didn't get anyone coming and want to buy him, even though the manager said, I'm happy to let him go. Yet his comments in the summer were, I want to stay, I want to fight for my place, and I want to prove I'm good enough. Now, you know, you can take that with a pinch of salt in this day of social media that he's earning $100,000 a week, maybe he's just happy. But I actually think he really wants to get back. And he's played twice he played obviously in the Europa League, a game against Nottingham Forest, and he also played in Frankfurt, did he?
Yeah.
He's played very, very well. Is there a chance? I mean when Luis and Socrates are getting real lot of shit over the last 2-3 weeks. Can Mustafi make his way back into this team?
I don't think so. As you said earlier, we both named our top 4 centre-backs and we didn't mention his name, so if he's number 5, there's a long way for him to overtake. I also think, I know when, like you've said, we've scored 20 goals and whatnot, you've included the Carabao and the Europa League, which look, they are first team games, so this isn't a criticism, but they have been against lesser opposition. I mean, I don't know what happened with Frankfurt because they've had decent results, but I don't know if they made changes. I don't know their team well enough. But is in a normal light of day, do you say so? Like, look at Martinelli. He was probably the best player on the pitch against Forest, and then no one's been saying, he should have got a spot the other day. And then for the same reasons at the other end, you can't say Mustafi had a decent game against the Forest that didn't come to play, didn't start their 2 of their main attackers in Amiobi and Graben were both on the bench. So he's basically played a championship team's second choice strike force. For me, that doesn't put you in the conversation. Although I will say he isn't as bad as Arsenal fans make out. The thing is with Arsenal, you're never as good as you think you are when you're good, and you're never as bad as you say you are when you're bad. And Mustafi falls into that. That, okay, he's not brilliant. And the same with Xhaka, and probably the same with Emery, even though I'm part of it. That we go on as if, as a fan base, we go on as if they're like the worst ever and unfit for their job and whatnot. And they're not that bad. But then we also have players that they score 2 goals in a row and suddenly they're going to win the Ballon d'Or and they're probably not that good. And I think it's a huge, probably football fans in general, but obviously we're more involved with Arsenal, and I think it's a huge problem with Arsenal fans.
Yeah. Ozil to captain the side on Thursday?
Looking at that, Bellerin was ahead of him in the list, wasn't he?
I haven't even seen the list, if I'm honest.
So it was Granit, Aubameyang, Hector, Laka, Ozil.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest, I'm half a mind if I was Ozil, I'd tell Emery to go fuck himself. But obviously he can't do that.
Is it time for that boy to have a walk? I thought when I was listening to your podcast, I always thought that was a typewriter going on in the background. I always thought it was Schwinn typing while he was waiting for you to finish a question.
I explained this a lot early on. I think people just got used to it. I've got wooden floors and the dog likes to run around for no apparent reason.
Yeah. Right, and then if we win the 2 games this week, it puts us in a huge, strong position before we have another ridiculous international break.
Yeah, the joys of international break. I mean, Bournemouth's going to be a hard game. I think people are kind of half overlooking them, especially considering how we've played.
Yeah, they're scoring goals for fun at the moment, and they've won away from home. They scored 3 away from home on the first game of the season, if I remember. Not the team. I like Eddie Howe. I like the way they play football, but hopefully they've played well enough already this year that they're going to start their retreat into the bottom half very soon.
Yeah, let's hope so.
All right, well, that's all from me. If that's all from you, Tony.
Yeah, nothing more to add.
Thanks for joining us today. Tez, get well soon. Schwinn, get back on the pod soon. And we will speak to you all next week.
Yeah.